Well, hey, everybody. We are live yet again, and this is Joe McCarthy of MOJOE.studio. Happy to be here with my longtime friend and mentor, Rick Olson of Rick Olson Seminars. Rick, where are you today?
Joe, I'm in steamy hot Wisconsin. One doesn't often associate those words together. But Joe,
Right.
We are in an unbelievable stretch. We are now, I don't know, like day 9 or 10 of a 90-degree plus thing. That sometimes happens to us around July 4th. That never happens in early June. And fortunately, I'm in an air-conditioned room right now. But my little world has about had it with 90-degree stuff. We're not wired for this sort of thing.
That's right. Yeah, and I'm in Southern California in Orange County, and it is what it typically is. 70 degrees, clear outside, light breeze coming off the ocean. I am spoiled. I am spoiled. I am spoiled.
Perfect. I know I talked to my good friend Greg Nichols the other day from Hawaii, and in the wintertime, I'm always jealous of him because it's always 81 degrees, light trade winds coming off the ocean. It's 10 below in Wisconsin, so I'm communicating about that. And now here it is summer. I'm still jealous because he's still at 81. And now I'm at 97, and it's like we can never get it quite right up here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, but I do have to hand it to you, Rick, because you told me recently that you have this strategy for once a year. You make sure that you make plans to take your wife to Hawaii. And how did you choose which week of the year you're going to go?
Well, we did a little weather investigation and said, what is traditionally the coldest week in a Wisconsin winter? And we came up with this. Traditionally, it's the 20th through the 27th of January is the coldest time. And on the 20th, there's a really good chance that we're on an airplane and headed across the ocean to Hawaii. Work
Absolutely.
like a charm. The colder it is here, the better I feel about getting on that plane. If it's 25 below, it's like, sorry, family and friends, but man, it feels great to get out of here.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. So we are continuing our series called Speak Up, which really is about the profession and really more so the mindset of what makes a really good communicator, right? And Rick, you've been doing this for a living now for 30 something years. In fact, maybe more than that, because before you were in professional speaking, you in the business world, you were in the youth ministry world, which is where you and I met. And I still remember, and I've told this story before, that the first time I met you and you're standing on the stage and you're telling this hilarious story about being the slowest, whitest tight end on your football team. I could identify with that. I was the slowest, whitest tight end on my football team. And you catch this breakaway pass, and you're like, this is it. This is my path to glory. And the whole team, including the linemen, track you down and pile on you 10 yards into the run. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's a story that I can relate to, and I will remember for the rest of my life. And here I am, 35 years later, telling that exact same story.
Yes. No, in my mind, I was a fabulous athlete. I just was not blessed with speed, nor could I jump very high. And you're quite limited as an athlete if you don't have speed and you can't jump very high. I did all right. I was able to start on my football team. I was on the golf team. I was on the basketball team. But fortunately, Joe, I went out for drama and debate and speech, and that made all the difference. My future was not in football, but I tell you what, I had a drama teacher knocked every fear and inhibition out of me. Little did he know that Rick Olson would be in front of crowds the rest of his days. And so now today, when I talk to high school students, I say, look, sports, those are the glamour positions. They're fabulous. I'm so glad I did it. But man, teenagers get into drama, debate, speech. If you develop poise in front of a crowd, the world is just going to open wide open to you.
Absolutely. And for me, that was music. So I was into sports as well. And I was always the kid that could make the team, but then sit on the bench. I go to all the practices, do all the workouts, and then sit on the bench during the game.
Yeah.
Right? But when it came to music, now there's a place where I could excel. So I became very good at trumpet, as you know. And trumpet really became, go ahead.
Well, I want to comment on that because you're so good at whenever you're the host, you're always building up other people, talking about their exploits. I just want to tell your crowd, I know Joe McCarthy. I've known him for a long time. He's not a good musician. He's a fabulous musician. All right. Joe, you are extremely gifted in music, and your music has taken you around the world. So anyway, I commend you for that. I kind of dabbled in music, but man, you were very, very good at it, and still are. Every time you do a trumpet thing, I just love to tune in and listen. So kudos to you.
Well, thanks. But I think the parallel there is we learned confidence and poise and get over the inhibitions of our own self by performing, right? You performing as a drama and speech and debate. And I did a little bit of that as well, and then got that same gifting and talent because of being able to perform on the trumpet, sometimes with the band, sometimes solo. But I think the end result is the same. And I would say my athletic days are mostly behind me, right, as well. I mean, I can play in the church league softball team to some degree, but when I get on first base, I'm asking for a runner, right? Because those days are behind me.
Right.
But I can still play trumpet, and I can still perform on the guitar, and I can communicate. I can communicate well, and I'm learning from you how to do that even better. So I'm thinking longevity, right? As you're speaking to the teenagers again, do the great stuff, have fun, but realize that has a limited lifespan. But communication and music, those things are a lifetime investment.
I know when Gary Zaleski and I used to speak to teens back in the 80s a lot, one of the things that we would talk about is the kids who were academically inclined or maybe inclined to drama, debate, speech, etc. And if you're a total jock, there's a good chance that maybe you labeled some of those people as a nerd, okay? But one of the things that we would say to them is, you may call them nerd today, but 10 years from now, you're going to call them boss. All right. So everything is going to change here in the future. And I don't know that I'd figured all that out when I was in high school. I'm not sure that I know I didn't. I didn't see the end result. I'm just so grateful that I did get into those things, which sharpen those skills that develop poise in front of crowds. It's amazing how the world opens up to you if you have poise in front of a crowd.
Absolutely. So as we continue our discussion, what makes an effective communicator? This is more than just being a good presenter, right? I mean, this is part of it. Part of it is being a presenter, but if you want to be an effective communicator, there's far more than the nuts and bolts. In fact, we were just having an offline discussion where you can be really, really good at something, but still fall flat because there are elements that are emotional. There are elements that come from your personality or your connection with the audience that's far beyond just the mechanics of being a good communicator. And that's what I love about being in your speaker school and now partnering with you in this podcast, is that you address both of those things. There's the how-to, the nuts and bolts. More importantly, there's the why, what's your motivation, which we've touched on already. But then there's the part of what's coming out of you and what's being communicated beyond the words.
Yeah, John Maxwell said it so well. He said, you have to touch a person's heart before you get their head. You'll never get their head until you get their heart. And I've often felt that as a speaker, how do I get the heart of these people? Last week I was speaking in Nebraska. I didn't show up empty-handed. I showed up with a lot of cheese and a lot of sausage and a little taste of Wisconsin for the people. Well, if they were anticipating a good presentation, they were over the top when all of a sudden I'm talking and they're eating some of the finest tastes to come out of Wisconsin. That is one way to touch somebody's heart. My wife has been a caterer for years. She's one of the best cooks I know. I can't tell you how much she has meant to my business. Couple things. Number one, any sponsor who hires me during the course of a year, in December, they're going to get 12 homemade truffles from Rick Olson. And as our doctor says, these are better than Godiva. So every year that they hire me, they get truffles. Some people, Joe, I'm convinced, hire me to make sure they get the truffles in December. I don't care what he did for our people. As long as I get those truffles in December, what do I have to do? I'll hire him. I'll bring him back. So we get the truffles. But she has sent me out of the door with caramel apples, with truffles, with chocolate-covered cherries, with sugar cookies with their names printed on it. I mean, she's just poured out her heart. And she connects extremely well with my crowd. Some of them have never met her, but they absolutely love Lori Olson. So together doing what we can to impact their lives with information, but to touch their heart on a very special level as well.
Yeah, and we talked about this too offline, that in some respects, the gifts from Lori Olson could come across as a gimmick, like it's a marketing thing, just to grease the wheels and make sure that people remember you. It does all of that, but when you put in then the heart part of it, where you say, this is with love, I really care about you, I care about you and your company, I'm so happy to be here. Then you deliver the goods, right? You make your presentations, you talk to the people, and it's not just a how-to presentation, but it's, I care about you, I care about your success. And as you have said many times, and this has become my mantra, I'm not here to impress you, I'm here to draw greatness out of you. Now you can say that, or you can do that, and you do both. You say that, and then you do it, and then that's when people say, I want to have you back for you and your truffles.
It really is the compass of my life. It's the true north in my life. My uncle helped me, and that has become my mission. I am not here to impress you. I am here to draw greatness out of you. My goal is not that you walk out of the room and say, that was great. My goal is simply that you walk out of the room and say, I can do that. And that's the end game. That's what I'm striving for. If they embrace that, and if they say, I can do that, and they make positive changes, I don't have to worry about myself. I don't have to worry about my future. I don't have to worry about next year's bookings or anything like that. Just keep feeding into people's life, build their confidence. They can do this. I'm going to be fine. And it's going to be fun to watch them and their company grow. Yeah.
I was just reading an article like an hour before we went on the air, and it's about a book that I haven't read yet, but now I really want to read it, called Atomic Habits. I think this actually came from...
Right.
And I'm reading this review of Atomic Habits, and the first thing is there's a big difference between motion and action. And I thought, what's he talking about? And they went on to this very wonderful description that we can often confuse motion, like we're doing stuff, as from action, where we're actually taking steps to progress, to get better, to make changes, to become who we want to become. And I think that's one of the keys to becoming a great communicator, as you are, is that you don't just give people action. I mean, you don't give people motion. You just give them stuff to do for stuff's sake. You actually give them practical steps that can get them to a desired goal, which is to be an effective communicator.
I know today I was doing some Zoom training, and we were talking about the 15-5 rule. It's one of my favorite concepts in customer service. The 15-5 rule means that when a customer shows up, enters your lobby or whatever, within 15 feet, when they're within 15 feet, you need to make contact. You need to acknowledge their presence. Eyes up, big smile, welcoming. That has to happen when they get to that 15-foot part. When they're within 5 feet, you need to be verbally communicating. Good morning. It's so nice to see you, whatever you're saying. But I love teaching that kind of stuff to people who are service providers. And instead of just saying, be friendlier, engage people. Hey, let's look at the 15-5 rule. So there's an actual distance there. At this point, you know that when they get there, you need to be locking into who they are as a person. And when they get within that 5-foot mark, you better be the one being the host, welcoming them in, making them feel glad that they're there. So it's not just a matter of giving them fluff and all these great, we're going to be friendlier, we're going to be faster, we're going to be this, we're going to be that. Specifically, what does that look like? What does it look like to make somebody feel, I am so glad I came to this place. I'm so glad these people are taking care of me. I do what I can, do the best I can to make sure that it's practical, that they can walk out of the room and start applying it within minutes.
Yeah. And one of the great things that I got out of speaker school, and I want our listeners to get out of it as well, is for most people, and I'm not wired this way, but for most people, standing up in front of a crowd is just, it's unnerving, right? It's like their biggest fear. There's lots of reasons behind why people hate that, and they just dread it so much. And you were very good about helping people get past that roadblock to where they can embrace the fact, hey, I can do this, and I can actually do it well. That's a progression, of course. But to us a little bit about that, Rick, about how do you get beyond, this is the biggest fear in my entire life. I do this, but I can embrace it, and I can do it really effectively.
Good. Let's talk about that. I think there's a number of practical things that we can do to calm ourselves, to help ourselves just be a calm presence up in front, not a stressed presence, not a nervous presence, but a very calm presence in front of people. So here are some of the things that I do, Joe, when that time comes. Number one, it's a principle that I've lived with my entire life, and it just says, assume people like you. That is how I've chosen to live my entire life. I never walk into any relationship, whether it's a one-on-one relationship or a relationship with 500 people at a conference, where I have nervousness about, do they like me or don't they like me? Am I who they thought I would be, or am I somebody different? Are they disappointed? Are they excited? That's a very dark place to go if you start going down that path. So when I walk out on the stage, I really don't see it as arrogance, but just this calm, quiet confidence. I believe these people like me. I assume they like me. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to like them. And that's going to come through in everything I do and say. And they don't have to like me, but if they choose not to, I'll make it very difficult for them.
I love that.
It is hard. It's hard to hate somebody who loves you. Okay.
Right.
And so if you're worried about it, what happens is you get real neutral or defensive. Let's say you started speaking, somebody on the second row got up 5 minutes into your speech. You could go into a freak out mode. Oh my word, this person hates this, and walked out. And you could be a basket case in that moment. If you're neutral, there's going to be no energy. Neutral would be, I don't know if you like me or not, but I'm going to see how you treat me. If you treat me well, I'll treat you well. And nobody wins there either. So
right.
for me, it's always proactive. I'm going to assume you like me, and I'm going to treat you that way. And 95% of you are going to reciprocate. And I'm just fine with that. So that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. I can identify this, and I know that a lot of people do this as well, is that in the absence of information, you start to fill in the blanks. Like you're making up stories about what the motivation was for this person that got it from the second row and walked out. Now, this says a lot about you. This is a good thing to examine, because if your head goes to, they don't like me, they're walking out because they think I'm a jerk or I'm not delivering the goods, that'll put you in a really dark place, right?
Right.
But also it says how you feel about yourself. It doesn't say about what they feel about you, because you don't know what they feel about you.
You don't know.
You don't know. So I'm always of the opinion, like, well, since I don't know their motivation, and this is kind of what you've taught me, just assume, their baby is sick at home and they got to go, they have an emergency, or they should have went to the bathroom before they walk in and now they can't hold it any longer. You can make up something fun or funny to realize it has nothing to do with me.
That's right. Or the best of all worlds, they sat down and went, oh my word, this is so great. I'm going to go get my wife and get her in here. She's got to hear this with me.
Right.
It could be that too. But that is kind of the base point for me. When I started as a speaker, I never feel neutral about the crowd. I never feel defensive. I feel very positively. I assume that they like me. I treat them that way. Secondly, another big thing for me is the crowd is a car. And I, as the speaker, am the accelerator. And the car is idling, and the car is going nowhere unless I step on the gas. I've got to step on the gas. I've got to hit the gas. So I tell my speakers, never, ever start with an apology. And I'm guessing you've heard them, Joe, and I have too, where they start, well, first thing I'd like to say, I'd like to apologize because...
Right.
And at that moment, I want to walk out of the room. I don't care what you're about to say. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to take a half hour or an hour when you're apologizing. It just sets the tone for a downer experience with the crowd. Yeah. Come in, you're excited about what you're saying. You're excited about the opportunity, about what they're going to learn, about what they're going to leave with, etc. So hit the gas right away.
Yeah. I'd like to put that in more context too, because I know of the story you told me recently where you were traveling from one state to the next and the planes connections didn't happen because of the weather. And you had, and I'll let you tell the story in detail, but you had lots of reasons to show up and give excuses, and you chose a different path and you got a different result. Give us a little, a synopsis of that recent scenario for you.
Well, I'm trying to remember, Joe. We've talked about many things. Is that the one? Is
so
that the one where I drove through the night? Is it that one?
No, this is where you were trying to get from, I think, from Texas to Louisiana, and there were storms in Texas, right?
Yes, very recent. Yes. Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. So it was supposed to be 2 days in Texas, 2 days in Louisiana. Flights worked out perfectly for that to happen, except about the time my flight was to leave Austin, Texas, monsoons rolled through Texas. And I was at the airport 3 hours early, and it just sounded good. Okay, we have a delay. It's going to be 20 minutes. I've got a 3 hour. 20 minutes is no big deal. Second delay, third delay, fourth delay. The fifth delay finally knocked me out. This isn't going to happen. And then there's a sixth and the seventh. So anyway, everything went horribly wrong. It was a long, frustrating night, and I knew I would not get to Baton Rouge for my morning presentation. I'm the speaker at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to be there. People are going to come from around Louisiana to hear me. I won't be there. I'm talking to my sponsor. My sponsor is gracious. I'm saying my wife is on this. She's working on it. We're coming up with the very best possible plan. And the best possible plan got me there at 12 noon. So bless their hearts. These people were very gracious. And when I got there, they said, Mr. Olson, we know you haven't had lunch. We have a sandwich for you. I said, you know what? That'll be later. I don't need to eat now. I've got people that have been waiting for 3 hours. I'm going to get in there. Went into the room, never said a word about hardly sleeping a bit that night. The airline frustrations, the fact that they didn't have my luggage, the fact that I didn't have anything I needed, all that stuff just went in. We had a fabulous 3 hours. I worked about all the other disappointments later, but we had a great 3 hours. So no, that's not a time to trouble the audience with your woe is me story. They came to get help, inspiration, direction, and a part of being a professional is you bring it, whether everything is silky smooth or it's a very rocky road. It's still a part of being a professional. You bring it every time.
That's awesome. In both cases, so we've talked about assuming that the crowd likes you right from the get-go, and then we talked about you never start with an apology. In both respects, what I'm thinking of is you reap what you sow. So if you sow these seeds of self-doubt, then people are going to doubt you. If you sow these seeds of self-excusing, then people are going to, they're going to have that same mentality. So in essence, you are controlling, in the best sense of the word control, you're controlling the outcome that you're going to get just by planting seeds of positivity. And I'm a professional, and I'm here to deliver it, and I'm going to deliver the goods. You don't know the backstory, and you don't need to, because that's only going to bring you down. So you're planting the seeds that you want to reap.
Absolutely. You do reap what you sow. And so right from the beginning, starting off with that quiet confidence, I'm here for a reason. There's some other good things to keep in mind. One is that somebody wanted you to speak there. So somebody probably at the top of the food chain in that organization said, we want Rick Olson to speak, or we want Joe McCarthy. He's our guy. So you don't go out there as a volunteer. You go out there as a fully sanctioned, endorsed person, a speaker. The highest person, the highest committee has signed off on you. They want you. And so you go with that confidence that I'm not just out here doing this little experiment and going to try. I'm fully sanctioned and endorsed by this leader, by this organization. That in itself is confidence inducing as well. Understanding that about the sponsor is very important. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just on that same point, some people could look at the fact that I'm being paid, I'm being sanctioned, I'm being brought in as the guy. They take that as pressure. Like, can I fulfill their expectations? Am I really going to live up to that, right? And so then you've placed those seeds of self-doubt. Like, can I live up to the expectations? But what you're saying is another way to look to that exact same circumstance is that when they hired me, they already gave me their confidence, their endorsement that
That's right.
You are the guy. You don't have to doubt if you're the guy. I'm paying you because you are the guy.
Yes. Yeah, they voted on you big time long before you ever showed up. Maybe a year in advance. They looked ahead and go, at that moment, Joe McCarthy's our guy. We're putting him on the stage. We're bringing 1,000 people. We want 1,000 people to hear from Joe. We looked at everybody else, didn't want him, wanted Joe. And I see that as a major confidence builder.
Absolutely. Yeah, good.
Let's talk a little bit about the crowd. I think it's very important that you know what's going on in the mind and the heart of the crowd. Joe, you've sat through many presentations. When you sit in a crowd and a speaker is about to present, would you ever sit there and think to yourself, wow, I hope this is miserable. I hope the speaker fails. I hope he falls flat on his face. I hope this is a dud. I hope this is embarrassing for the speaker. And my guess, Joe, is you've never thought that when you sat in an auditorium to hear a speaker.
No, the exact opposite. I'm just thinking, man, I hope he nails it. I hope he hits it out of the park. I hope this is the most inspiring hour I've ever had in my entire life. That's what I'm hoping.
That's it. And you have to remember that as a speaker. Everybody walks into that auditorium, and that is their thought. I hope he has a great day. I hope he brings his A game. Hopes he has a career day. Everybody is out there cheering for you. They're cheering you on. Nobody's out there hoping that you fail, fall flat on your face, embarrass yourself. Any of those thoughts are all self-doubt thoughts that you put there, but that is not at all how your crowd feels about you. So the sponsor has signed off on you. They're 100% behind you. The crowd they're cheerleaders. They're ready for you. They want you. All of that is stuff that helps put us in a good mind when we walk out into the auditorium.
One other thing that you've said that helps me is to remember that it's not about me, right? Because as soon as I'm in this place where, well, are they going to like me? Am I going to do well? Am I going to embarrass myself? All those things. That's all questions about me. Well, I'm not up there to present to me. I already know the material. I'm there to present it to them. I want to make an impact on their lives. And as soon as I get out of the mentality of, am I going to succeed or fail? Will they like me? Will I embarrass myself? And I get to the point where I'm concentrating on, what do I have to offer? What do I have to give? How can I impact their lives? How can I make their lives better? Well, that changes that anxiety level down to almost zero, because it's not about me anymore.
You're just in full, I'm going to help you mode. And that is a great place to be. If you came across an accident and you were the first one there, you would be 100% engaged, pulling the door open, pulling the person out of the vehicle, calling 911, doing whatever you could. You would not for a moment be thinking about you. It's just, I've got to save this life here. And everything I'm doing is focused there. Same with the crowd. 100% of the focus is on them. What can I impart to them to give them a skill, to give them a level of confidence, to give them a hope? What can I do to bring them to that point? And now I'm out of the equation. They're right in the center of everything. And that's a very healthy place to be. And that'll keep you from being overly stressed as well.
Yeah. And as we all know, in the crowd, we have pretty keen intuition to whether the speaker is up there for himself or herself, or whether the speaker really cares about me in the audience. I mean, within seconds, I think, maybe it's minutes, I don't know any stats on this, and you can speak to this even more from experience, but the crowd intuitively knows within the first few seconds of your speech if you're there for yourself or if you're there for them.
They do. The speakers who I do not care for at all are the ones who will start something, tease you a little bit, not give you the conclusion, not give you the formula, and then we'll tell you, but you can get that on my table at the back if you buy my book, if you buy my package, all this, and then here's another little teaser, and we never really give it to them, but they have to buy it at the back. Those are the ones that drive me nuts. Yeah. I'm going to surprise you when I speak at what I freely give away. Okay. I'm not holding all these secrets to myself. I'm going to give you a whole bunch more. And Stephen Covey probably helped me a lot with that. He just talked about living life with an abundance mentality. There's enough to go around. You don't have to withhold. There's always more. Be generous, give freely. So if you came in and thought you might get a couple tips, I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to give you many more than you thought. It's like, oh, he didn't even charge extra for that. So,
yeah. And I mean, that's such a win-win, because if you do have an abundance mentality, then there really is limitless things that you can give. You might give away everything you thought of that day, and then you'll come up with more stuff to give the next time around because you believe there is more. There's a limitless supply of great inspiration and motivation and ideas. And quite honestly, whether if people are going to call you back or not, you're going to stand out because you over-delivered, you gave freely, you gave all that you had, and they're going to say, that's the kind of person I want to hear from again, not the one that teased me with a little nugget and then said, but if you want the tree, you got to pay me another $1,000 or more.
Right. I have one of my sponsors that I'm working with right now. I've worked with a sponsor for 10 years. Wonderful person. And she got a hold of me recently and just said, Rick, all my early leaders, they didn't hear the great stuff that you shared with us in those early days. And I feel really bad for them. They're left out. So I want to find a plan now so that they can get all the great information that we missed, or that they missed. We got it, but they missed it in their early days. And that's a wonderful relationship to have with somebody. And when you are freely giving and you're putting a lot of energy into what you do, and I do, Joe, I'm reading constantly. I'm constantly stretching myself. I sent you that book review today. You liked it. I read it this morning myself. I'm ordering it right now. Yeah, this is going to be a big part of me going forward as well. But always sharing with people where there's help and where there's more help. When you do that, you become a very valuable resource for people, and they want to keep you around.
I can imagine the skeptics in our audience who are listening in, especially those who are like, I want to make a living, being a speaker. It would be very easy for them to think, well, that doesn't seem like a sustainable business model, right? If you give away all your stuff up front and you're not making what do they call those when you're, you sell something a little more, you have to jump up to another level, and the upsell, right? The upsell is the whole spiel. So the business savvy people might think, I don't think that's a sustainable business model, but you can say with great confidence, after 30 years in the business, it not only is sustainable, it's a great model for success.
It really is. And when I started, Joe, I was a keynote speaker. Rick's a guy that would come into your convention, give them a great hour, jump on a plane and fly to the next city or fly home. That's stimulating. You get a lot of applause. It feels really good, but it lacks gratification. You never get to see the implementing of your ideas. You never get to watch growth. And I have really switched over from the world of keynoting to the world of consulting. I don't work with nearly as many companies as I used to. I just work very in depth with companies right now. And so I will go back 4 times a year to help this company. And sometimes it's year after year after year. And I grew up in a preacher's home. So for me, the way I would compare it is, in my early days as a keynoter, I was the evangelist, the guy who shows up with the great story and the great music, hits it hard, and you never see him again. And now I'm not that. I'm the pastor. The pastor's with you every Sunday. He's with you at your best. He's with you at your worst. Kids get married, buried a relative. The pastor's there. I'm like that for these companies. And I'm watching companies grow in a phenomenal way. And they're telling me, Rick, you are a part of our company. Rick, you are one of us. That's incredibly gratifying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have heard you say too, and this is really good for people to hear, that in those relationships, when you talk to a crowd, you don't have an us them mentality. You are saying, I'm part of you. I'm one of you. I'm here with you, not for you. And I think that's really important for people to hear.
It is. And just a little bit more on the crowd and connecting with the crowd. When I speak, unless I have a flight challenge like I had down in Texas getting over to Louisiana, if I don't have that, I am the speaker who's going to show up early every time. And if it's a crowd I've never spoke to, there's a good chance you'll find me sitting in the back of the auditorium, and I'll go sit with 3 or 4 people that showed up and start talking to them. Find out who they are, what they're doing, what today's all about, and just get a feel for who they are. And I'll move around, talk to a few folks like that. And of course, these people are all stunned when the program starts, and all of a sudden the guy that was sitting with them that they thought was just a coworker that they somehow didn't know, I'm the guy up in front speaking to the crowd. It's like, oh my word, I had no idea that's who you were. But I try to do that constantly, and just that connection with people has helped immensely. Not being afraid to be in the back of the room. I don't have to be at the speaker table. I don't have to be side by side with the sponsor. I can be out there mixing it up with people, connecting with them. I do that for my crowds that have maybe never heard me. The ones that have heard me and that I know, and some of this consulting stuff I do, I'm still going in early, and I know them well enough. I'm asking, so how's Golf League going this summer? And so did you get to go to your child's graduation? Did they have a public graduation, or did it end up being a COVID private thing? And just talking real life to people, that stuff makes all the difference. So as a speaker, put in the extra time, build those relationships. They're gonna bless you in every way.
Yeah, this is good. And we're going to continue this series. We've got tons more to share. One thing I want listeners to hear before we go, and one of the things that we will address, is that most public speakers, including pastors, know that a huge percentage of the crowd, even if they really love the message, are going to forget what they were told, within days, maybe hours of when they heard it. That can be very discouraging for a speaker. Like, I'm good to all that effort and all that energy and all that work, and most people are going to forget what I said anyway. So that's one thing that we'll address, and I don't want to talk about that today, but that's something that people could tune in for. And I also did want to say that one thing Rick is doing now and has been doing since COVID started is having a speaker school virtually, where people come in from all over the country, tune in on Zoom, and Rick teaches these principles of effective communication, which I am a graduate and proud to say I've got a certificate from the Rick Olson Speaking School. And as we've mentioned before, the benefits are not just the nuts and bolts and motivation for being an effective communicator, but also the networking opportunity and the relationships that are made. And the people that I met in that class now have become close friends and partners of mine who I never would have met any other way. So all that to say, I would encourage the listeners that if you want to become a better communicator and have the benefit of networking with others who want to be excellent at that as well, check into the Rick Olson Speaker School at rickolson.com.
Thank you, Joe. You're very gracious. It's one of the most gratifying things I'm doing right now is just taking those who wish to be more proficient, more poised, have an impact, and spending time with them. and networking them with other people. It's just been the joy of my life to connect with these folks. And so we do this on an ongoing basis. Let us know. We'll tell you when the next school is about to launch.
Yep. All the information for connecting with Rick will be in the description with the podcast. And I'd also like to say, there was something in there I was going to say about speaker school, and now it is going in this head and then right out the other side. So it's gone. We'll save that for next time.
Yes,
right?
we will.
Yeah. So Rick and I are fully aware that time is a precious and non-renewable resource. And so it is really our intention that if you spend time listening to what we're talking about, that you get a high return on your investment, that the cost benefit analysis is in your favor, right? And that's really the intention of being a great communicator, is that the people will receive far more than they ever expected. And that's a win-win for the speaker and for the audience. So on behalf of Rick Olson and Rick Olson Seminars at rickolson.com, Joe McCarthy at MOJOE.studio, thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for our next Speak Up episode when we dive more into how to be an effective communicator. Signing
Thanks,
off.
Joe. Thanks, friends.
Bye-bye.